going live now? We're going live now, everybody. So please turn your cameras on. Thank you. Good morning and welcome to our Electronic Planning and Works Committee meeting on May 10th, 2022. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, committee members are practicing physical distancing and are participating electronically. Councillor Clark, Jowett, and I are present in the council chambers along with Chair Redmond. I would now like to call on the clerk to conduct the roll call, please.
Thank you. Regional Chair Redmond.
Present.
Councillor Verbanovic. Councillor Jaworski.
Here.
Councillor Clark.
Present.
Councillor Jowett.
Present.
Councillor Erb. Councillor Nowak.
Present.
Councillor Kiefer.
Present.
Councillor McGarry. Councillor Armstrong.
Present.
Councillor Harris. Councillor Shantz.
Present.
Councillor Strickland.
Here.
Councillor Foxton.
Present.
And we have regrets from Councillor Galloway and Lawrence. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd now like to do the land acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather virtually today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. And at this time, as we reflect on the past. We try to learn today so we can move forward together, stronger together. Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest? Seeing none, we will proceed with the delegations. First off, I'd like to remind all delegations of some of the guidelines for participating. Please leave your video camera turned off and your microphone audio muted until you are called upon to speak. Today's delegation will be allotted 5 minutes to speak. Groups of 2 or more will be allotted 10 minutes. All delegations who registered after the deadline will be allotted 3 minutes to speak. We also ask that you leave the meeting once your issue has been addressed. You are then welcome to watch the remainder of the meeting being webcast live via YouTube. If you conduct yourself in any of the following manners, it will result in an immediate removal from the meeting, interrupting committee members, staff, and/or delegations, derogatory statements about committee members, staff, or others, turning your camera on at inappropriate times, and hate speech or defamatory comments. One last reminder for delegations. Please do not take offense if following your presentation there are no questions from members of the committee. This is their time to really listen and reflect upon the opinions and ideas shared with us from our community partners. I would like now to call on Sonya Koch from Kitchener. Sonya, you have 5 minutes to speak.
All right, hi, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Hi, my name is Sonya Cook, and I'm a resident in Forest Heights. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you all this morning regarding some significant concerns that I'm having with the traffic noise at my residence on Newbury Drive. I moved into my residence in June of 2021 with my 2 young daughters, aged 2 and 6. I had viewed and purchased my home during the spring lockdown over Easter, to which I thought I was purchasing a fantastic place with a gorgeous backyard for my girls to rip around in. The traffic and noise during that lockdown, as I'm sure you remember, was very minimal and not bothersome at all. After moving in and sitting out on my back deck for the first time, I was absolutely shocked and disappointed at how loud the traffic was. As a side note, I've lived on properties that have backed onto the 7-8 and other busy roads, and never have I experienced a volume of noise this disruptive before. The sounds of honking, cars, trucks, buses, and motorcycles accelerating behind my property through the roundabout and up and down Iron Needles have taken away from the quiet enjoyment of my backyard living space. As I settled in, I started to talk to some of my neighbors and ask, has it always been this loud out back? How do you deal with it? The response I got was, not until the high-rise went up. My neighbor explained that prior to its construction, the traffic noise was a non-issue. She explained that on nights when fireworks are going off, you can clearly hear the double bangs as it reflects and echoes off the large building. I have since experienced this myself. I got curious about how the neighbors who have sound walls were managing. Did it really make a difference? So after speaking to another neighbor who backs directly onto Ira at the roundabout, but has a sound wall, I said, "Don't you find the traffic just unbearable at times? I don't even want to sit outside and watch my girls play." She said, "No, it's actually quiet in my backyard." So at that moment, I invited her to the front of my backyard during rush hour to hear the difference, and she was absolutely shocked. It made me feel sad in that moment that this investment I made for myself and my daughters maybe was a poor one. I noticed something else that was curious. The sound wall starts midway in my neighbor's backyard. He has since added his own fence to his property line for privacy. I began to wonder, if my neighbors had a sound wall, why was this a location for it to start and not further down Highland Road? I wondered about the data and what studies were done to support this decision. I wondered, when the high-rise was being developed, was the amount of acceleration noise from both Highland and Ira and the reflection off the building taken into consideration? When I reached out to members of the city asking about the studies that were done, I was thoroughly disappointed in the responses I was given. I was told about a study that was done in 2014 prior to the construction of this building that only took into consideration an increase of traffic. I'm not sure if it was predicted how busy this intersection would become over the years. After looking at the study, I noticed there was a decibel reader that was placed 150 meters down from the intersection, but there was no data taken for my property or the ones in between. In one email response, I was gaslit to believe that the building behind my house was a non-issue and not amplifying the noise at all. The fact is, I can hear very clearly the echoes bounce off the high-rise, and as I mentioned earlier, I have neighbors who have lived here for 15 years that explain the traffic wasn't an issue until the high-rise went up. I was also told that there was a sound clause in this community and that I should have been aware of that in my purchase of my home. Well, I've spoken to my realtor at great length, and I can confirm that that's not true. So I wanted to share with how this level of noise is impacting myself and my young girls and the enjoyment of our home. During most hours of the day, especially during rush hour, two people cannot carry a conversation on in my backyard without raising their voices or shouting. My mother, who's older, cannot hear my daughter call for her when she watches her after school. If my daughters are watching TV while I cook dinner, we need to make the choice of feeling comfortable with the beautiful breeze or hearing the show that they are watching. It's the same for me at night. I cannot open my window and enjoy my evening. My girls cannot hear me call to them from my deck while they are playing on their play structure. And as a primary school teacher, I am constantly being woken up. I'm waking up exhausted because I'm constantly being woken up by loud honking or traffic noise, especially motorcycles that are waking me up in the middle of the night. So forget about leaving my window open for an evening breeze or fresh air. The sound of traffic make it impossible to fall asleep and stay asleep. I have absolutely no quiet enjoyment in my backyard, which has decreased my overall enjoyment of my property.
Sonya,
So if I want to enjoy a nice quiet evening in the fresh air, I'm forced to sit out front or not at all. I'm not alone in my frustration with this situation. Many of my neighbors feel the same way, and you will hear from some of them today. What we are asking for from the region is to take new sound data from the current condition to see what we are actually experiencing on our properties. I appreciate the time that you've taken to listen to my concerns and requests today, and I look forward to seeing the results from an updated study.
thank you, Sonya. Any questions, councillors? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next up, we have Brandon Gorr. Brandon, you have 5 minutes, please.
Good morning. I'm not sure if this is I'm screen. I have a presentation to present. To Sonya's point also, and what we're experiencing as residents here in that Highland, off of Highland Road. So just essentially highlighted that there is a lot of traffic noise that's being reflected off of Iron Needles and Highland off the high-rise building. We asked specifically if there was a policy to address this or dense developments, review corridor practices of putting buildings along these corridors, and to either update or regional noise policy to incorporate these high-rise structures or dense developments. The planning and works agenda on April 3rd, essentially, from my understanding, is no, there is not a place for reflection. And they provided us with a graphic here, as you can see, for noise reflection off of Highland Road. However, there was no mention of Iron Needles being included in this report. So as you can see in this background here, just how close that building is to the intersection and adjacent properties. So our question is, was noise reflection off of iron needles included in this updated model on April 12th? Based on the Ontario road noise analysis, it states that there should be no need to correct the noise data for reflection off a building because it should be captured in the free field analysis. However, the building wasn't constructed in 2014, so this data was not collected. As Sonya had mentioned, the most closest receiver to the intersection is 160 meters away. Was this sound data used to essentially get that 0.6 decibel reading? We'd like the region to understand how we got to this situation or how we arrived at that conclusion. To give you some more background information on what's been happening in the last year, we approached the region staff in the summer of 2021. I kind of said that we need to have this updated based on the new data as part of the policy. As according to the sound study that was done in 2014, receiver Q, which is right here in the top left of your screen, was supposed to have, or was measured to read 48.2 decibels at the property line. And it was only projected to be 49 decibels at the property line in 2031. However, the region staff came back in 2019 and said essentially that the outdoor living area that they were now assessing is 58.9 decibels for one receiver and 59.7 at another location. The updated data for 2019 for receiver Q is not provided, but you can see this yellow line here that comes across the back of the properties is essentially the 65 decibel limit. So you can assume or interpolate that this is about 65 decibels at the property line as of 2019, before construction. So I wanted to understand how there was such a significant, and you can see here, 17 decibels at the property line for receiver Q that has increased, and the average daily traffic has only been increased by 2,700 vehicles. Looking at the projected for the 2023, or 2032, sorry, there's an increase of 4,000 vehicles, and on the outdoor living area, it's only 1.7 decibels increase. We also noticed the 16 or 17 decibel increase on receiver Q is the only one that was increased. And why receiver P or receiver O or N or M did not receive any increase along their receivers as well? It doesn't logistically make sense, in my opinion. Even to further the issue, the April report said the pre-construction condition was 56.8, yet the one that was provided in December 2021 says it's 58.9. So even these values are differing between data that's being presented. So this just goes to show the confusion that's occurring between residents, staff, and what's actually occurring on this property. As part of the policy, it also said a daytime noise assessment for the outdoor living area will be assessed, and the nighttime noise will be assessed for an exterior bedroom window. As you can see here in the 2014 report, the outdoor living area was not assessed, and in fact, the only mention of the outdoor living area was that it will simply be much less than what was recorded at the property lines.
Brandon, can you
looking at the Herb Street sound analysis as a comparison, you can see these in the property lines of the residences, and so I asked myself, is that what is required? Is it acceptable to have receivers at the property lines, or is it acceptable to have the outdoor living area boundary assessed for these properties? I'm not sure. And was the nighttime noise assessment at the exterior bedroom window for Highland Road project actually assessed as opposed to their requirements? Because all we've seen is just noise data that's taken from the property line.
Brandon, your time is up. Thank
And
you.
finally, you look at the, can I mention the one last point here of how the road has actually shifted?
Yes, you can add one last
The
point.
original design, thank you. The road has shifted here from one last design, that this was the original construction that was done as part of the road alternative 3C, and the road is now shifted with a raised median now it's now been pushed closer, and the road has been closer to our property line. So as you can see, by 13.8 meters to 9 meters. From my understanding, this hasn't been updated, and according to Ordinance, when you go above 4 lanes of traffic, you have to be taken from the center of the roadway, not also dense vegetation has been removed from the corners or from the property lines as well. So that hasn't been taken into account in the new sound analysis.
Thank you very much.
We've asked the region, can you please update this? We need direction from council. We need council approval to build a wall. We essentially said we just need noise data to substitute it. And the staff had said they're not changing their decision, and this has now been resolved.
Thank you,
so we here essentially saying there's been significant changes. We've asked the council, and we presented this petition to the council, and asking the council to motion to get new sound data to understand what the actual noise levels we're experiencing are due to the expansion of Highland Road. So thank you for your time. I know I went a little bit over, so I apologize for that, but yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Should you stop sharing, please?
For sure.
And councillors, any questions?
Councillors, any questions?
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Kimberley Silva. Do we have Kimberley? There we go.
Good morning, and I just wanted to thank you for your time. So my name is Kimberley, and I'm just here to share my family's personal experience with regards to the noise levels that are coming off of Highland Road. I have a 20-month-old son and another one on the way in June, and both of their bedrooms are located at the back of our house facing Highland Road. And my son has been woken up numerous times from traffic noise off of Highland Road, despite having all of the windows in the house shut and a sound machine on in his room. We have his sound machine set to 50 decibels, which is the max that we can set it at without potentially damaging his eardrums, and it still doesn't drown out the noise from the road. And I've also noticed many times where the noise indicator on his baby monitor is being set off by the cars driving by on the road. Sleep is crucial to child development, and due to the excessive noise coming from Highland Road, it's really frustrating that I can't provide my son with that basic need. And it seems that I'm going to be dealing with much of the same with my newborn in June. In addition to the sleep concerns, it's excessively loud in the backyard when we're playing with him out there. Lots of times we prefer to take him and play in the front yard where it's quieter. And it's just a shame due to the noise level coming from the road that we can't enjoy the safety of our fenced backyard and have to take him out to the front yard where there's potential safety risks for a toddler. As mentioned previously, sound data that was taken was 8 years ago in 2014, but there has been a ton of development in the area, lots more traffic, lots of people. And as Sonya also pointed out, people's quality of life is being affected, and I just feel that there needs to be some due diligence to collect updated data. So that's all I have for you today.
Thank you very much, Kimberley. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. I have a question for staff. Is that okay, or?
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks. Just wondering if someone can explain how we do our sound studies. I know we've had a number of them in the township as well, and you know, what studies come up is not always what seems to be intuitively obvious to regular people.
Through you, Madam Chair, I would direct that to Mr. Bauer, and so we can provide that general explanation on sound studies. And with Highland Road, if council does wish, we can take this away, speak to the residents, and provide an update report in the future on this particular issue if council wants to go in that direction. But I also see Mr. Vandekar is on, so I'm not sure if they want to duel over who wants to answer this question. So you can decide, Steve or Phil.
The question might have been a bit vague too. I mean, how do we handle situations where there's changes, as there is here with new buildings as well?
So Mr. Bauer can respond to that and provide that information.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair. So I believe from the information that the delegations provided and through some of our prior discussions with them, there is a little bit of a misunderstanding with the term receiver. And so the receivers that are referred to and that Mr. Gorr showed on his presentation, those are not actual locations where sound levels are measured. Those are the locations where sound levels are calculated based on our noise model. So the noise model uses traffic volumes and a number of parameters, the distances from the roadway and so forth, to calculate noise levels. When the initial studies were done in 2014, they were based on these calculated noise levels based on traffic volumes at that time. Last year, Mr. Gorr contacted us and he was concerned that some of the data might be out of date or may have changed. So we updated the noise models using 2019 traffic data and projected that 10 years beyond the anticipated completion of construction, 2032, and confirmed, as noted in the April 12th report, that the criteria or the thresholds for noise walls are still not warranted, even though the traffic volumes have gone up slightly. And we also checked and confirmed that the traffic volumes would need to go up very, very dramatically in order to meet the thresholds for noise walls in this area. So again, it's based on traffic volumes and the physical characteristics of the roadway and the backyards, and it's not based on actual sound meters set up at any of these locations. So I think that's an important point to clarify.
Thank you, Mr. Bauer. Councillor Clark.
Sorry, forgot what I was doing here. So along the same lines of that question, and I do feel great sympathy for the householders along here. I had to move from a house once that was on too busy a road, and I couldn't keep my windows open, and all of the things that have been said. We have this issue of noise coming to us all the time. This is the first time I've heard the idea of reflective noise, reflected off buildings, brought as part of the conversation. And I know there are certain triggers that we do use when we revisit noise studies. Are things like the construction of other buildings part of that, or is it purely traffic and traffic volumes? And sort of part two of that question is, I know we use models. When and under what conditions do we actually go out and take real readings?
So again, through the chair, so the noise policy, the noise models do not take into account reflection off of buildings. We did, in response to some of the questions we received from Mr. Gorr last year, we did do some calculations of noise, trying to account for noise reflection off of the building that was constructed on the other side of Highland Road. It's a very, I would say, a very conservative estimate of the noise reflection, and it makes very marginal difference in the sound levels. And again, the other point that's key, I think, here is that these are based on average daytime levels. So again, you know, a particularly loud vehicle driving by is certainly going to be much more noticeable. And the echoes that were described may be more noticeable with a loud vehicle driving by, but it really doesn't affect significantly the average level, which is what the thresholds are based on.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And it was certainly the odd motorcycles that caused me the most grief.
Thomas, did you want to speak again?
Yeah, just very briefly, and that exactly is, those are the two probably main things, is the modeling and dealing with noise as an average is used. The other big question people have is, so why aren't you actually why can you rely on a model? And the main reason you can rely on a model is that the physics of noise are actually pretty simple. The biggest factor is how far are you away from the source? So the question is, how loud is the source? And how far are you away from it? That's the biggest factor that impacts what you hear. And a a model is able to deal with those types of calculations quite easily. A noise wall obviously will make a difference, but it's the distance from the source. So if you have the volume of the noise, which we do have, we know what the traffic noise level is. The model is able to then calculate what you should experience in the backyard. You don't have to go out and take physical readings of that.
Councillor Strickland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to take Mr. Schmidt up on a question and refer this issue on Highland Road and noise attenuation, reflective walls, wherever it makes sense, back to staff and they can meet the residents and bring back a subsequent report. The other thing I'd like to say is that, we've been dealing with these noise issues for years. We had Cambridge a few weeks ago. We had Waterloo a few weeks before that. At least 2 or 3 different instances in Kitchener. And, every term of council is the same. And then, we all deal with it individually as well, talking to homeowners. And then you get into this kind of bun fight about what the model says and then what the homeowner's experiencing. And then you have the extra loud noise from the motorcycle or the truck that goes by. And then, well, the model doesn't support the noise wall because the average sound doesn't meet the standard, and the resident doesn't want to hear about physics and the engineering of sound. And I understand what staff's doing, and this isn't a criticism of staff. I just think that, I think in my mind anyways, we come to a time where I think we need to take a much more holistic approach. It's the taxpayers' money. And if so many folks keep coming to us on a consistent basis being concerned about noise because of increased traffic along regional roads, rather than get into these bun fights about whether they get a wall or whether they don't, or they pay for it or we pay for it, or the developer should have paid for it 30 years ago, I think we should look at a plan on how to put noise attenuation walls at taxpayers' expense along regional roads, similar to what we've done with sidewalks. We put into place a long-term plan for sidewalks. We put into place a long-term plan for cycling infrastructure. I'd like to, with the committee's support, refer this back to staff to look at what a long-term plan for noise attenuation walls along regional roads would look like, how much it would cost. And, we don't have to do it in a year. We don't have to do it in 10 years. Maybe it's 15 or 20 years, but I think we need to find a way to solve this problem rather than constantly getting into these battles with residents. So if the committee agrees, and with your indulgence, Madam Chair, I'd like to refer that request to staff.
Excellent idea. I was going to recommend the same thing. I think anywhere where we're putting in 4 lanes should automatically be walls for residences. But again, I will bow down to staff. I will ask for a report to come back. Thomas Schmidt, when do you think we could possibly have that report?
To you, Madam Chair. The report on Highland Road, I'm going to suggest it will likely be August or September. Would be reasonable. I can't guarantee August, but by September at the latest, I think we could. The issue of looking at noise attenuation and noise walls along all regional roads, staff can come back with a report like that. That will take, I would say, substantially longer, and we'd have to decide on whether that report is in the context of a re-review of the noise approach or as Councillor Strickland has phrased it, simply putting noise walls along essentially all regional roads based on certain criteria. I think those would be 2 possible approaches. So I would suggest staff need to think a bit about that and see what the best way is to come back. Likely, I'm guessing likely that would be later this year or early next year.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Chair Redmond.
Thank you, Chair Foxton. I do appreciate the spirit of Councillor Strickland's motion, I would tell you, though, that I think this is bigger than just a referral. So I know he has said with the indulgence of committee, I would suggest that maybe we need a motion to refer this to staff. This is, I would tell you, a bit of a philosophical change. I think the implications are really large. I think that it's a worthwhile endeavor, so it's not that I'm against this, but I would just have to say I think this would take a disproportionate amount, both from the finance side as well as the logistics and what yardstick we would use to measure, or would we just do this as right of a 4-lane highway? I think those are all issues that would impact future councils. And again, I think it's a philosophical change, so if there was a motion and we would support it, I would suggest it's probably appropriate to have council express themselves as a committee.
Councillor Kiefer, you were next, but may I go to Councillor Strickland to see if he would like to put a motion forward?
No problem.
Thank you. Councillor Strickland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move that we request staff to conduct an information report and report back at the end of 2022, let's say December. Well, I want to make sure it's ready for the budget. So, you know, the budget would probably be in December, so probably we would need the report by November. Looking at two options. One is to adjust our noise standards. I know, let's put it this way. One would be to review our current noise standards and see if the current noise standards we use are current with best practices, and make potential recommendations for change if required. And secondarily, look at the feasibility and the costing of installing noise attenuation walls along regional roads based on a priority basis, i.e. those roads that have the greatest amount of traffic compared to those that have the less amount of traffic. I would so move, Madam Chair.
Councillor Clark, are you seconding? Thank you, Councillor Clark. Thomas, do you want to jump in here before again, Councillor Kiefer, I apologize.
I was just going to second it, Chair.
Oh, okay, thank you. But
My only comment on that is with respect to timing, and I appreciate the desire to get this to the budget, but this is, as Chair Redmond has said, that this is a significant shift, and there's much more that this would impact than just budget. So it impacts the nature of the road, the roadscape, front lotted, back lotted. So there are a lot of questions that need to be addressed in this, and that council needs to put its mind to before they move forward, much more than just a budgetary issue. So I would just request that staff, that timing be a bit extended, because I think staff are going to take more time, and I think council is going to take more time on this, because I don't think it's going to come down to just a dollars and cents questions. I think there's a lot of impacts that this type of a change could have.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. I also tend to agree with you in the timing. Again, do we grandfather such a thing so that existing places that are 4-lane highways, regionals, backing onto residences will be allowed our permitted walls, and we will add them on? Another thing I was wondering is, in some situations, the developers who build the homes have to put the walls on as part of the building. So can we look at an option like that? And I don't know if we can. Councillor Strickland.
I understand the complexities of this and the far-reaching implications, but I also recognize that we have a budget deliberations that begin in December of this year, likely November of this year, and there should be something that staff can be able to bring forward to get the process underway, at least for council to debate on some aspects of what these changes would indicate and what cost implications would be. I'd hate like to heck to miss a budget cycle, and I think it's important for us to get moving on this. So I'm not going to put a firm date. Madam Chair, did I put a firm date on my resolution? I think I did, didn't I?
You did, November of 2022.
and November 2022. So like, I'd like to keep it at that, November 2022, and whatever staff can bring back to us at that point for us to deal with. And if they need more time on other aspects, we can deal with it then.
Thank you. Chair Redmond.
Thank you. Councillor Strickland's actually covered off with my point, which is perhaps this is iterative, and have a report come back in November. And if it's not definitive, it'll give us a jumping off point to have a debate and a discussion. And then if staff need to bring back further detail at that point in time, they could do that.
Thank you. So staff, do you have the motion? Would you like to put it up for council to see, please? While staff is doing that, Thomas, I would like to know if we can put it back onto the developers. So, Council, the motion is up on their screens.
Through you, Madam Chair, currently we would do that through our noise policy. So if a noise wall is required when a developer develops his property, that would be a requirement. I'm assuming if we said that a noise wall was required along all regional roads, that we could put that onto developers. I suspect they would be a very interested party in discussing that with council. So I think that's part of the complexity. While there are so they would be interested in that unless it's completely at regional cost. Again, council's decision on how they do that. Those are our issues. And I see Mr. Dyer has his hand up on this as well.
Yes, Mr. Dyer, and then Councillor Strickland.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. And just building on Mr. Schmidt's comments, I've been thinking about this notion of funding of such costs since the conversation started. Obviously, I don't have an answer, but I think we'd have to have some discussions with respect to what in the development charge world is referred to as benefit to existing. So especially where we're going in and putting in noise walls on existing roads, that would be, I think, a fundamental part of our conversation, which is how much is growth benefiting from that? How much are the existing residents benefiting from that, and figuring out some kind of cost share, which may be different than noise walls on a brand new road that's being built. So I think a lot of conversation that we'll need to have, I think, after the engineering folks have spent some time on what service level might look like. So plenty of work for us to do on the budgetary and financial side as well.
Thank you, Mr. Dyer. Councillor Strickland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think there should be two separate motions. The Highland Road is separate. I don't think staff indicated that would come back in November, so I would make the Highland Road thing separate. Refer the Highland Road requests from the delegations to staff to report back at a later date. I think Mr. Schmidt said that and plus they want to meet with the residents, so if that could be included in there, and that would be a separate, that would be a separate resolution on Highland Road. And then, and actually I don't think Highland Road, I think Highland Road is just a referral to staff. I don't think we need to vote on the Highland Road.
That's what I was going to ask, if there was just a referral to staff. So we will take the Highland Road portion out and mark it as a referral to staff, which Thomas, you will take care of, and your staff, thank you. And so can we have the revised motion, please? Are we having the motion put on the screen? Thank you. So we have a mover and seconder for that, correct? And now I'll call for the vote, please. Councillor Shantz.
Yeah, thanks. I just have a question. The date is taken out of there completely. Did we want any kind of a date on that motion?
I thought we wanted a date for an interim report to come back, not a completed report, but an interim, and I believe it was November of 2022, correct, Councillor Strickland? Okay, so could we have that date added back in, please? I thought I saw it. Yeah, it was in there, Councillor Shantz.
It was in there originally, Madam Chair, but it was connected to the Highland Road, and so they removed the Highland Road, they removed the date.
Oh, okay. Could we have the date
Yeah, so-
back in, please?
So that's a good catch by Councillor Shantz. The date should be in there.
Do we need to see the revised motion again, ladies and gentlemen, councillors? No? Okay. So that is carried. Thank you very much, council. We're now going to go on to the consent agenda. Oh, we do have another delegate, Dallas Noftall. And Dallas, you have 5 minutes.
Hi there. I don't know. Can you see me? Or hold on, just 1 second. Start my video. Hi there. So this is my first time doing a Zoom with council of any kind. Thank you very much for listening to me today. I am at the northwest corner of Maple Grove and 24. So when you come on to Maple Grove, my house is the one that's kind of under the bridge there. Moved in here in very similar to the lady who spoke, Sonya, was what she expected and what she is seeing. I know, bad on me, not to understand it was COVID and it was kind of quiet and beautiful. But accepting that development is on the way, we have to make space for new housing, affordable housing. I understand. I am a real estate agent, so I really understand the need for that. I actually work with Indigenous low-income developers and the City of Toronto. I come from Oakville, so that's a little of my background. I moved here with my son and expecting grandchildren. So as a homeowner, this is why I'm here, and I'll try to make it quick. I echo Sonya Koch's, all of her complaints. I also, a thing I can add to that is that there's a bridge on the rear of my property. My property is kind of like a parallelogram. It's kind of twisted. So I don't know when the studies were made. Again, I would request more additional studies for my property. The rear of my property, what was taken into consideration, because I do plan to use the lower area, not just the fenced area where the pool is. The fence is there to protect people from drowning in the pool, but it's not the only usable space in my rear yard that backs onto Maple Grove. So with the bridge and the plan to do a sound wall west of Maple Grove, the bridge is my backyard and the sound reverberates from underneath that bridge. I am already bombarded, like everyone knows, but I have a considerable amount of construction vehicles, ambulances, the motorcycles are insane, yes, but at night I am woken up and I do use 3 noise machines in my 3 bedrooms, and the noise wakes me at night. So I don't agree or believe that this worst case scenario, the average, I don't think we should be weighing a report on the average of noise. We don't, when we do insurance and health and all these issues, we don't say, we don't look at the worst case scenario, we average it out to the middle. So the mornings, the evenings, the big heavy 80,000 ton trucks, all of those things can't be weighted against an hour of the day in 24 hours when we've got 10 vehicles at 1 a.m. So the average I don't agree with, because the average is not my concern. It's the worst case scenario, the noise vibrating underneath the bridge. the shape of my property. So this noise wall starting west of my property, when the vehicles turn onto Maple Grove and I'm a few hundred feet and it doesn't start till after my property. That's my concern. I do believe these noise walls are valuable, and it would be invaluable to me for my families. I bought this property with the intention of raising grandkids and passing it on to them. And I don't see us staying in the house with the windows down as being an enjoyable life. Spending time outdoors is very valuable, and I plan to grow vegetables and stuff in the back of the property to try to lighten my footprint and eat better food for my family. So the noise, as well the danger. I have had accidents in the rear of the property. People have come and knocked on my door and asked for their car parts to be retracted from the rear of the property because there's been collisions before and on that bridge. So there's a danger, there's a noise, there's the visual. I'm not sure how much time, sorry, I do talk without stopping. I'm trying to get it all in there. So I don't know what you can offer me, but I do implore you to revisit this with new data, with the eyes of a family that lives under this bridge, and understand that the sound is insane. That I have ridiculous amounts of video showing where we are shouting over each other and can't sit outside at the worst times of the day. So I would like this study to not be weighted on averages, but look at the worst and consider those, please. And understand that the noise doesn't start after the bridge, and my property doesn't begin after the bridge is the irregular shape, and the livable space outdoors is not west of the bridge. So I guess those would be my main thing. And the maximum height, I'm not sure what the maximum height of these noise barriers are, but I would be interested. I know I'm late to the party. I don't have all the information that I would like to have had before I spoke today. But an automatic 4-lane highway noise wall will absolutely get my vote. And my taxes are substantial. Strickland said, I think the taxpayer, the little guys like me and all of us along this large area, were hugely impacted and shouting for our families, not able to hear each other.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you. Next, we will go on to the consent agenda. Does anybody wish to pull anything from the consent agenda? I see no hands. Can I have the motion, please? A mover and seconder, please. Councillor Erb, Councillor McGarry. Oh, Councillor McGarry, yep. Please use your buttons to vote. And that is carried. Thank you, councillors. Now we're back onto the regular agenda and automated speed enforcement program. I believe Steve Vanderkoer will be speaking on this. Is there no report or anything?
Through you, Madam Chair, we were not planning a presentation. We are available to answer any questions, though.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Clark.
Thanks. Sorry, I'm a bit slow. Just with regards to the overall speed reduction of 2 to 15%, it's about 4 kilometers per hour, as I understand it. I'm just wondering, is that what we anticipated? Is that what data would have told us to expect?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think in some other municipalities, they've actually enjoyed a greater speed reduction. So we're hoping as the program expands that we will get an even greater speed reduction. I don't know what the maximum is, but the 5 kilometers that we've seen is very encouraging.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting otherwise. I'm just trying to work it into a $459,500 capital investment. But thank you.
Councillor McGarry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And through you, I just wanted to also echo Councillor Cart's comments that it is good to see the speed reduction in those areas. Even 4 or 5 kilometers per hour makes a significant difference in the type of injuries that are sustained by a cyclist or a pedestrian if struck by a moving vehicle. I guess I'm just wondering if you could clarify what it's going to take to be able to expand this program in more areas throughout the region. Thank you.
Thomas.
Through you, Madam Chair. Staff would like to expand the program, and that would be subject to council's decision, also related to budget decisions. But one of the big challenges that we have right now is the processing of the tickets. And there are bottlenecks in the system. I believe staff took a report to council last fall, September of 2021, to talk about the potential ways to accelerate the program. And the bottlenecks in the system regarding the processing need to be addressed in order for the program to truly be expanded in a positive and an effective way. And there are works underway to address those bottlenecks. I believe POA will be bringing a report to council sometime later this year with regards to some progress on the new AMPS program, the administrative monetary penalty system, which will allow some streamlining of processing of tickets, and that will allow our ability to process more tickets. So those bottlenecks, once they're addressed, and through council's decisions regarding the budget, the program can certainly be expanded.
And if I could follow up, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I appreciate the cost that it does take to get going. Would it be helpful for us to speak with some of the ministries at the provincial level during the AMO conference to try and better resource the entire POA system throughout the province? Would that help?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think I let POA comment on that if they would, but I guess more availability of judges would certainly help for disputed claims and through the system. Province has cooperated and come through because the AMPS system was approved. The regulation was approved, I think, effective July 1st of this. So now it's up to the municipalities who wish to participate to set up their own program. So the province has come to the table with some help. There's always more help that we could get, which wouldn't hurt in terms of when there are disputed claims, the availability of justices of the peace to make those decisions. But right now, we're not seeing a lot of disputes on the tickets that have been issued so far for this program. So it's really just about the processing, and we hope to see some improvements based on the new AMP system.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Chair Redmond.
Thank you, Chair Fox. And just further to Councillor McGarry's points, as well as Mr. Schmidt and Mr. Vandekeer, this is a live and topic that is discussed at AMO repeatedly, and we do need to road test what the additional supports are that the province is giving, but it is regularly brought up at AMO board meetings.
Now, thank you, Chair Redmond. This was just for information, this report. And is there any other business, councillors? Seeing none, the next meeting will be June 7th, 2022. I'd like to have a motion, please, to adjourn. Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Clark. Please use your buttons. That looks like it's carried. Yeah, we are going to take a 7-minute pause now to rotate back into finance. Thank you.